We've seen Boris Johnson, a lot of people saying it's a distraction from what he's obviously Partygate, which personally I think is a ridiculousness that we should even be discussing Partygate. But do you think him going to Ukraine is a good sign?
I'm proud of him. I'm proud to be British. I'm proud of this government. Remember when we voted to leave the European Union, the hardcore Remainers were saying that we're a poxy little island in the grand scheme of geopolitics. Yeah, here we have. I'm not saying that Boris Johnson went to Ukraine because we're no longer in the European Union. I'm not saying that at all. But it's made us far more nimble than having to negotiate and communicate with 27 other countries. And one thing I really admire about what he said, besides all of the 120 armoured personnel and the Stinger missiles, all of that, is that he is going to give a preferential trade deal to Ukraine. Now, you can't do that as part of the EU. You can't do a preferential trade deal with a third party. You have to do it as a collective. And I'm made up for him. He's walking around in a Savile Row suit, quite a juxtaposition with all of the soldiers. No body armour, no bulletproof helmets. I'm made up for the guy. I think it's brilliant.
Some people might say that, from what you said, that actually we're more vulnerable. I mean, that's just an observation and an opposite.
We're more vulnerable in what respect?
Well, in fact, you talked about the fact that we're not with the EU and so on and so forth. I'm just reflecting the opposite perspective, that some may say we're more vulnerable. Yeah. But what's your view?
I mean, it is quite interesting. There would him going there as a public mission and a secret mission. The public mission is actually what Danny mentioned in terms of. It's to show, obviously, extra support, but also their trade agreements, kind of discussions about the fact that the UK can do this without being inside the European Union. But the more kind of hidden one, which is against soft power politics, is kind of similar to the whole EU relationship, but it's about NATO has been slightly undermined at times because of the history, because of the mistakes, and America leading it, and with Biden basically making a mess.
God.
Boris wants to basically, in a very, very subtle way, to promote that Britain is now leading. So forget about, you're attacking NATO because of Biden messing it up and everything else, and EU with, being completely dependent on Russian gas and oil. So he wants to basically be the guy. He wants to be the Western Zelensky, in terms of they're both very good at PR. Basically. It's just been objective.
Well, it's although Vladimir Putin is a master of it, actually, within his own country, isn't he? In that respect,
I've been quite disappointed with Russian propaganda, though, at least towards the West, since the whole thing started. I know that they're mostly targeting their own people with their propaganda, but we're not really hearing much from them. I know
well, they're not going to do that, are they? Because we can see what's going on, right? So we know. So whatever, and you've heard some of the things that they say, which doesn't, we're watching it. And even the bombing of the train station, they're trying to claim that it was Ukraine who would have done that to their own people. It doesn't really make any sense to me. I can't see how Ukraine would have done that. So that sounds like a ridiculous supposition. So there's no point them coming out and saying that to the West.
And Boris Johnson's opponents, I was listening to Emily Thornberry from Labour, saying that he should resign if he intentionally misled Parliament over Partygate. Now, this is her prejudice, and it's almost a pathological hatred of the man that his opponents have, that even though we are at a cusp of maybe a military conflict, they still want to oust Boris Johnson, A, because he got Brexit done, and B, because they loathe him. And they can't shy away from their pathological prejudice.
Well, but they are the opposition, right? So they will want that.
Picture is
I do see that, but ultimately, it doesn't do them any favours to look at a shrinking picture where there's a large picture around them. That is, there's a global element that this country must be involved in. But some people would say, if we move back to Boris Johnson and him going to Ukraine and showing his leadership and so on and so forth, that it actually makes us a real target for Russia. Because you imagine we're supposedly a little island, we're breaking away from the EU, we've broken away in terms of that. Obviously we are part of Europe, but we're not within the EU. And some people would say that we are very vulnerable and we're putting ourselves at big risk.
Yeah, it is a risk, but again, this is the geopolitical game that the governments and countries are playing. At this point, Boris is already a target because Putin came out weeks ago saying, "Oh, he's my main enemy," and the problem with it's not that risky, at least for now, is because what's Putin going to do? Because he's already done soft attacks, whether it's like poisoning, whether it's kind of targeting individuals. He either has a choice: press the red button, or just bluff. Yeah. So Boris is basically double bluffing, can be like, well, you're not going to do anything, so I'm just going to be your main enemy.
Yeah.
So it is quite risky, but someone has to do it.
Somebody has to
because Biden
do it.
can't do it.
Biden can't
Putin's
do
laughing
it.
at Putin, at Biden. Like,
But everyone's
really?
laughing at Biden.
Well, no,
It's unfortunate.
That's
but I like what.
that's
But I do.
supplied lots of military equipment, the Americans.
They have done, but Biden himself as a leader is not really coming across well. However, I actually respect the comments that he made where he talked about Vladimir Putin and said that this man cannot continue in this way. And I think he's right, and I don't really understand why everyone tried to be so outraged by something that was clear.
It's just the way he said it.
No. But what his PR should have done was get behind him and show strength and solidarity instead of saying, "Oh gosh," every time he opens his mouth, "Oh goodness, he's a doddering old fool. We need to keep him back, put him back in the cupboard so nobody can hear him." I actually think that they did themselves a disservice, and I don't think it helps with the Russian leadership either, because they'll watch that and see, "Oh well, nobody trusts anything he says anyway."
Don't forget, Putin a couple of weeks ago said people who supply the Ukrainian army, that's tantamount to being involved. He hasn't done anything.
Yeah, he's a bluff.
I said a couple of weeks ago on this show that he's a blagger and a bluffer. And Boris Johnson's calling him out.
I don't think he's a blagger and a bluffer, but I think on this occasion he has to think, even he will look at the bigger picture and think, well, nuclear war will mean I actually get nothing.
So he's a bluffer.
So not really. You could call it a bluffer.
Got his nuclear regiment ready.
I think that at the end of the day, if you push him to the very end, then I don't think he's a bluffer at all. I think he would act. But the point is, it would have to be where he's got nothing, which is why people are desperate to give him something to just get him to clear off.
Yeah.